Shawn. It's so nice to be checking in with you. Our first check-in on our second Indian fiction book that we're reading together. Second in a year. It was a year ago that we talked about reading this amazing list of Indian fiction. But we're getting to our second one. We'll get through it. This is, as you know, such a long journey by Rohinton Mistry. For everybody watching, I thought I'd just give a rundown. This is sort of follows Gustad Noble, and Gustad lives in an apartment in Bombay during a time when there is a civil war going on in Pakistan, is my understanding of it. And Gustad works at a bank. He has 3 kids. He's got a son who's at college. He's got a wife who cooks delicious food. He's just an ordinary guy. But against the backdrop of this war, it provides a really interesting story. What Rohinton Mistry has done, so this isn't just a story about a guy who works at the bank, is to provide a mystery. So the mystery is that in the apartment building, there lived a guy called Jimmy, and he was a major, and all of a sudden Jimmy vanished. And we kind of join Gustad when he receives a letter from Jimmy after many months of him being gone, saying, "G'day, how are you? I'm, doing some important work with the government. Can you help me?" And Gustad, after much thought, decides that he will, and he has to go and pick up a package in a bazaar and take it home and then send it on somewhere. We don't really know what's happening yet. But the mystery surrounding this pickup of the package and Gustad helping out a mate has provided this real tension for me at the start of this book. And through the course of him picking up this package, he sees a guy who has come into his life a couple of times before, who helped him when he had an accident, and then the other day had an accident in front of Gustad, and so he keeps popping into Gustad's life. And so that provides this next layer of mystery. And then now that means that I'm suspecting everybody in the book. And I think that there's this woman that's a little bit cuckoo that lives in the apartment building, and I'm going, what's her story? And then there's this other sort of man that lives there that has sort of a mental disability that has befriended Gustad. And I think maybe he's got something to do with some sort of spy activity. And kind of this tension is surrounding Gustad, but he seems to be just getting on his merry way. His main focus is his son, who is not going to go to the college or university or whatever that he's gotten into, that he wants to stay in the college that he's in. And there's this sort of chat about disrespecting a disrespectful son. There's also lots of chat around, and what I'm finding really interesting is sort of the different levels of society, the different types of religions that live in India. So there's this sort of scene where Gustad is hanging out with his mates at lunch at work, and they sort of tell all of these jokes that are about different sections of the Indian society and laugh, kind of offensive jokes, I would suggest, if you were one of the people that they were talking about. So there's lots of commentary about, like Indian life, just everyday life, about how to get milk and the mosquitoes and all this sort of stuff. There's commentary about caste systems and religious sort of segregations. And then it's all in this backdrop in the background. But what creates the tension is this kind of war that's going on. The refugees coming in. Just a lot of great commentary on all of it. I'm super enjoying this book. I think it's great. I have read A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry before and remembered loving his writing. The way that he has weaved this story so far, to me, is really clever. The creation of the tension, I think, is really clever. But also it's just a story about a man. Like he's just working in a bank, and he's just got asked to pick up a parcel. Like there's that level to it. But in the background, because of the writing, there's all sorts of moments for me. So like I'm so worried about him and what he's getting himself into, but he just seems to be kind of happily doing it. So I don't know if I'm a plot driven reader, but like I need the mystery, I need the tension. If this drags out and it's just about Gustad hanging out with the banker being kind of a bit oblivious to what's happening, then I'm gonna get a bit cranky. You know, he's well up on the political scene and he knows his stuff, and he's gonna butt heads with his son about politics and things like that. But he's still just kind of plodding through. And I don't know whether there's that, you know, that story in itself of people, you know, in the face of some really tragic war occurring and a massive political upheaval, which is yet to come, that you just live your day-to-day life. You know, I could be doing that right now, right? We could have some crazy government in and I'd just still be, you know, vacuuming the house and, you know, getting the kids' school lunchboxes ready, because that's what you do day to day unless something impacts you directly. I don't know, there's thoughts around that too, and I've only just said that out loud and thought that. Anyway, I'm loving it. Shawn, I hope you're loving it. I really think this is going to be better than our first buddy read, which I can't even remember the name of. Oh God, what was it? Was it Narcopolis? God, that was a bad book. But yeah, I think this is going to be really great, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'll just check in with you again after the next 100 or so pages, the next check-in point, and we'll talk to you then. Okay, bye. Bye, Shawn. Bye.
Hi, Natalie. Hello, BookTube. Here I am with my thoughts on the first 100 pages or so of Such a Long Journey by Rohinton Mistry. Like you, Natalie, I loved the first chunk, and that bodes well for how the rest of it will go. Like you, I read A Fine Balance about 3 years ago and loved it. One of the best novels I've ever read. I'm predicting this one won't quite come into that level, but it's really starting out fantastic. I found myself nodding along to your commentary and agree with you that the mystery is intriguing and the characters are well developed, and I'm already deeply invested in the story. I am enjoying the characters of Gustad and his family, and the one thing that I would say that makes me a bit of a different reader than you is that I would be quite happy if all of the mystery stuff was absent and that this was just a study of a family. And I do notice that that is one way that yours and my reading tastes diverge, but I'm enjoying the mysteries. To follow up on that, I don't think you ended up liking Tanazaki's The Makioka Sisters, did you? I don't know if you ever finished it. And that was very much of a family drama where not a lot happened plot-wise, and it was just a deep and, for me, very resonant, rich exploration of characters in a family and family dynamics. And then I remember that you didn't really care for Fatima Farheen Mirza's A Place for Us, did you? And that's one of the best novels I read last year. And that, again, was a very, for me, rich, resonant exploration of the dynamics within a family. Not a whole lot else happened in that novel. So, I'm loving this novel, but I'm loving the character studies as much as I am any of the other dramas. So that's just interesting, isn't it? I found all the things that you talked about really interesting, and I found a few other things that you didn't mention that I'll mention to kind of round out the discussion. I found myself really enjoying learning about the Parsi community of India. Gustad's family is Parsi, and Rohinton Mistry himself is also from the Parsi community of India. So the Parsis, I have found out, I don't remember any of this coming up, but I quite likely was oblivious to it in A Fine Balance. But I've gone and done a bit of research, so let me just say a little bit about that. The Parsis were originally from Persia, and in about the 7th century, I don't know, it doesn't matter for this discussion, but like a long, centuries and centuries and centuries ago, they went into exile and came to India, a lot of them, and their religion is Zoroastrianism. They're Zoroastrians. The novel opens with Gustad performing his morning prayers, Kusti, And I looked a little bit into those, and I found the prayer on YouTube. It's quite beautiful to listen to. I didn't feel like I should paste it into this video because it might be sacrilegious. Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic pre-Islamic religion of ancient Persia. I think that's all we need to know about it for the purposes of this discussion, but Gustad is a very devout follower. There are only between 50 and 70,000 Parsis living in India today, so it's a very small minority, and as far as I've been able to gather, relations with other ethnicities in India have mostly been peaceful, and I think that is in large part due to the peaceful nature of the Parsis. I hope I'm not saying things that are not correct, but that's what I've gathered. Related to that, what has captured my imagination more than just about anything else is one key aspect of the Zoroastrian faith of the Parsis in India, but also their compatriots back in Iran, and that is their death rites. They practice what is called excarnation. So incarnation, excarnation. This is the way that their religion deals with dead bodies. So they have a special sacred place, which is referred to, I think, 4 times so far. The Tower of Silence, Dakma, but the English name is used in the novel, the Tower of Silence, and that is a circular raised structure where corpses are placed after some elaborate Zoroastrian ritual to be exposed to vultures to dispose of the flesh. And then after the vultures have consumed the flesh, the bones are lowered into another part deep in the center of the Tower of Silence, where with the aid of some lime chemicals they are dissolved. And that is an essential element of the Zoroastrian faith, premised on the belief that the human body and even things like fingernails and whatnot are unclean and have to be disposed of in a very special manner. We have already encountered 4 references. Gustad's goofy colleague comes over for that chicken dinner, and he says it's so delicious that it would make a corpse in the Tower of Silence sit up and appreciate it, which was really inappropriate. As far as I can understand, that colleague himself is also Parsi, but it was just a very irreverent remark that scandalized Gustad's wife. Later, there's a reference to a controversy about the Tower of Silence, which is the powers that be within the community are discussing whether to move to or include cremation. So this is set during Indira Gandhi's tenure as Prime Minister, so that was like 1970s or 1960s and 70s. I'm not sure exactly where that we fall at the opening of this novel, but I did find out that because of chemicals used in agriculture that poisoned the vultures, they were having trouble disposing of their bodies in the religiously sanctioned way, and they did explore other alternatives. And so that's referenced. The crazy lady that lives in their building, Miss Katpidia, I don't know how to pronounce her name. There are rumors that the reason she won't let anybody into her apartment is that she has 2 corpses that she will not part with. She will not pass over to the Tower of Silence, or that she did allow these 2 relatives, I guess one of them might have been her nephew and the other her brother that died in that bus accident. She sent the bodies to the Tower of Silence, but then she bribed the people that look after all that stuff at the Tower of Silence to get the skeletons back. So she's either got corpses or skeletons of her 2 relatives in her apartment, and that's why she won't let anybody in. A little bit ghoulish, don't you think? And then reference to Gustad's mother's death. They were so poor, and there's so much made in this novel about the fall from economic well-being of Gustad's father when he got ill, and then the mother died, and they didn't have money to pay for the prayer rituals at the Tower of Silence. So that's 4 times. I'm really curious to see where that goes in the novel, and whether, I mean, there's all kinds of death in Indian novels. Certainly there wasn't a fine balance, so I'm expecting the Tower of Silence to continue to be referred to, and perhaps, hopefully not, but quite likely to become an important part of the story going forward. And the last thing that I want to say is I agree with you. There's all kinds of political stuff with Gustad's friend, the major that's in the Secret Service or whatever, doing the secret spy work. There's also a lot of reference to the Hindu nationalist politics of that state, the Marathi state, which became a state in 1960. And they are very closely aligned with Hindu nationalism, but they have their own ethnic spin on it, and their political party, which is really fascist and racist and is referred to several times, the Shiv Sena. There's several references to that, and that's one of the things that Gustad and his son are arguing about. So I'm just wondering how much more that will play a part. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I could read it without doing these deep dives into some of the very specific cultural, political, historical, spiritual references, but I'm really experiencing it on a deeper level when I take the time to look those up. And let's see what the next chunk will be all about. Thanks for watching.